A few light years ago, I was working 16 hours a day in the corporate world. At night, I was moonlighting as a closet writer, penning poetry about social issues into the witching hour. Yet I was intentionally keeping this side of me secret, because I didn't want to be judged for having this weirdly creative, activist side of a woman fighting for what I believed was right. I was also raising 2 children, but struggling to meet the simplest family commitments. My time was compartmentalized into multiple parallel lives, but none of them intertwined. Having these different personas, each one residing on its own planet, was horribly inefficient and beyond exhausting. I was floating around the solar system with no magnetic pull back to my core true self. I was trying to be Superwoman, but failing to fly. I'm Kelly Van Nelson, executive, poet, and mum. I grew up in a deprived area of Newcastle upon Tyne. It was tough on that rough cast council estate, trying to avoid the inevitable berate within the wood-chipped 4 walls of neglect and hate. Papa died suddenly in his 40s when his heart began bleeding instead of beating. Mama married again and again and again. And we are now estranged because even though they say blood is thicker than water, it can also clog the veins, and I needed to cut the reins from negativity, brain drain, to survive and thrive. I hoped escape might be at school, but I suffered more than my fair share of bullying there for being the dinner ticket kid trying to blend in while the hole in my shoe gave me away. Every day, I wanted to lie down and cry. It was a do or die situation. So I left the classroom at Sweet 16, waving goodbye to the celestial angel of the north as I travelled on a one-way bus south. I put myself through night school to show the world I was no fool, and even though the Queen's English evaded me and privilege passed over thee, I was damn smart, playing the part, refining my art, giving myself a kickstart, following premeditated flow chart, into a job, answering the phone, faxing memo, trying to erase the memories of neglected younger years and all the deeply rooted fears that I was never going to be good enough, and imposter syndrome would forever be my only companion. I developed steely willpower, because nobody who comes from a broken home wants to be broken. And the bullying that once shattered me to a million pieces is now what makes me razor sharp. All alone, in the big smoke, I learned how to choke back failure. Defeat became alien to me. Reaching my full potential, a self-proclaimed prophecy. The pursuit of success, my destiny. In those troubled years where everything was red and the thin atmosphere was dead, I learned that the power is mine to reclaim, just as it is yours. This is my Mars. I formed my own family after finding love in South Africa with a happily ever after. Never complacent in the relationship from the moment it was consummated. Always refueling with enough dangerous heat to melt lead. Packed every interaction with action and molten passion, and radiated lust, tried not to combust too often. Which seems to have worked. We're about to celebrate our silver wedding anniversary. This is my Venus. I won't add Uranus after Venus just to show wordsmith genius, or the tone will plummet with the might of a meteorite in earthbound flight. So let's move on. We have a daughter. Raised her to be respectful, but I was neglectful. It's regretful that I was the mum who forgot the oranges at netball, who had to buy the cake for the bake day because I was so busy picking up after play date, I forgot to put the tray in the oven on time. Any working mums out there resonate with this one? Dropping the ball from the moment she forgot to ball, started to crawl, began to fall into line at school. I was so busy trying to pin lists to the fridge to bridge my own disorganized chaos. I couldn't stop spinning on the axis long enough to stop the motion sickness. Yet her unconditional love has always been filled with forgiveness of my shortfalls. As I tried and tried and tried to make sure she didn't live on Mars like I once did. This is my Earth. We have a boy too, a filmmaking genius that takes my literary word and turns it into a flick that does the trick of conveying my hard-hitting messages to an audience I want to influence into changing the world for the better. Together, he and I think, not outside the box, but like there is no box, as we look past blue sky to infinity and beyond. He puts lights, camera, action on my poetic verse, trying to reverse the generational cycle of the underdog, to instill resilience and brilliance in the lost children seeking a working class revolution. I'm proud of him for making me look at life through the next gen millennial lens of a person trying to shine the light on the plight of humanity. This is my son. Then there's the pinstripe age when I'm out of family range, driving organisational change, years after paving the way from unionised pay to make hay at the top of the corporate ladder. The girl from the street who wanted to beat the odds stacked against her. Combating, perpetuating education elitism with determination and realism in my vocation. I broke every rule when I became a mule, smuggling underaged innocence and any lack of brilliance beneath feigned self-confidence. Always running rings around the competition, on a mission to be the best version of me and helping others to be free in their thinking. This ring of ambitious fire is my pattern. This is my Saturn. But then the darkness sets in and the side hustle kicks in as I morph into a poet with deeply rooted scars ingrained in a sonnet, sharing verse overflowing with what's real, helping to heal this soul who broke and was put back together on this open mic, bearing every crack in the spotlight, not caring if this poem is filled with so many loose threads it can never be wound on a spool, because I'm still the goddamn sharpest tool in the box that you can't box me into. Because I'll always be the girl who broke every rule in the school, who grew into a woman who would rather rhyme to make a dime than recline and decline back into old school. So here I am, hands shaking, facade breaking, these words of truth leaving my tonsils raw and my heart thumping on the floor. Exhausted from this stanza bonanza, my face beaming with adrenaline as I cut through the darkness with the neon starkness of truth. This is my moon. And please, no need to swoon that I'm the first woman to land on the moon, because I certainly won't be the last. Eventually, though, an eclipse came, causing a collision of parallel lives in an unsustainable landslide as I tried to fly and fly and fly so high I could well see Papa in heaven's sky, instead crash landing on unfamiliar territory, barren of fellow human race, no longer protected by my Kevlar cape, keeping my psyche safe from the kryptonite bullets fired at my escape route back to my true self. How many of us are trying to conform to the norm, aiming to reform to take the world by storm, attempting to transform into the clone society wants us to become. In the process of acquiring the skills expected of a senior executive, building up agility and capability around strategy and risk and behavioral disc, the crater had formed in my integrity. It was time to abort being a pocket rocket, packing in my luggage of courage into a NASA rocket, to launch into space, into a place where I could tenaciously embrace my flaws, because I'm not. I never have been. I never will be. I never want to be Superwoman. It's time to leave that side of the mind behind with the kryptonite. This is my Krypton. So here I am, feet firmly back on the ground, renewed energy abound, parallel worlds stranded, finally landed right here, right now, without compartmentalism, ravishing existentialism as my mechanism to non-conform, as I abandon Superwoman on Krypton. Arms open, as I gulp to fill starved lungs with oxygen and authenticity. Crack shared, vulnerability bared, laser vision no longer impaired. As I realize it's not necessary to feel the need to feed and breed duplicity. I am the dark side of the moon, the bright side of the sun, the sparkle of the stars, with the universe at one. I'm just one whole real deal, and it's enough. We are enough. This is my galaxy. Now, I'm Kelly Van Nelson, no longer the exhausted executive, poet, and mum. I'm just me, filled with the brightest reality in this galaxy of no more complexity, only simplicity and efficiency in this 8th life. And I want to stay another day, ignoring the naysayers who say this Milky Way is just a stepping stone to pave the way to my 9th and final life. And whilst that might indeed be my plight, it's something I'll fight, so I'm not quite ready to board that one-way flight to a resting place beside Papa in the afterlife.